Wisdom, wisdom, that's the test. Which rival wisdom team is best? 52 teams of 8 antique rival wisdoms that have passed the test of time to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. Team 7, Prepared Excellence. Quote definitions, biographical context, and synergy analysis. ReplaceHate.org, motivationaleducation.com, guidealife.com. Quote 7.1. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin, 1706 to 1790. Quote definition, neglecting preparation is itself an active choice, one that makes failure the most likely outcome. Application. In replacing hate with wisdom and kindness, those who do not deliberately prepare their minds with better thinking are passively preparing to remain hateful. Education and preparation are the antidote. Benjamin Franklin was one of the most productive human beings in recorded history. Printer, author, inventor, diplomat, scientist, statesman, and founding father. Born the 15th of 17 children to a Boston candlemaker, Franklin had only 2 years of formal schooling. Everything else he learned, he taught himself through relentless preparation, reading, observation, and practice. He understood better than almost anyone of his era that outcomes are not random. They are the direct product of whether or not you did the work in advance. This quote reflects Franklin's lifelong operating philosophy. He prepared obsessively. He prepared for negotiations by studying the other party, prepared for scientific experiments through methodical hypothesis building, and prepared for civic leadership by mastering persuasion and coalition building over decades. The Poor Richard's Almanac series he produced for 25 years was itself an exercise in preparing the American public for better thinking. Franklin knew that most people mistake busyness for preparation, and that genuine readiness requires deliberate, advanced effort, not last-minute scrambling. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Treat preparation as a non-negotiable prerequisite, not an optional extra. 2. Understand that failing to prepare is an active decision with predictable consequences. 3. Invest time before the moment of performance rather than hoping talent compensates for lack of readiness. 4. Apply this principle to every domain, personal, professional, social, and civic. Franklin lived this truth at the highest possible level. When he arrived in France as America's diplomatic representative in 1778, he had spent years studying French culture, language, and intellectual life. He walked into Versailles not as a colonial newcomer, but as a thoroughly prepared ambassador whose groundwork ultimately secured the French alliance that won the Revolutionary War.
Quote 7.2. I hear, I know. I see, I remember. I do, I understand. Confucius 551 to 479 BC. Quote definition. True understanding, the deepest form of knowledge, only comes through personal action and direct experience, not through passive reception of information. Quote application. Replacing hate requires more than hearing about kindness or seeing examples of it. Only when people actively practice wisdom and kindness do they genuinely internalize and understand it. This is the case for experiential, practice-based learning. Confucius, known to the Western world as Confucius, was a Chinese philosopher, teacher, and political thinker whose ideas on ethics, education, governance, and human relationships have shaped the civilization of roughly a third of humanity for 2,500 years. Born in the state of Lu, China during the tumultuous spring and autumn period, Confucius came from modest circumstances but devoted his life to understanding what made societies just, harmonious, and humane. He spent years traveling from state to state, seeking rulers who would implement his ideas and teaching students from all social classes, a radical democratization of education for his era. This three-part progression is arguably the most compressed and complete theory of learning ever articulated. Confucius observed what educators have rediscovered repeatedly across millennia, that the gap between knowing and understanding is vast, and that only action bridges it. Hearing creates a fleeting impression. Seeing creates a longer-lasting one. But doing, personally engaging with a skill, idea, or virtue, creates the neural pathways, emotional resonance, and practical competence that constitute genuine understanding. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Recognize that passive exposure, hearing or reading, creates the weakest form of knowledge. 2. Value observation as an improvement on hearing, but still insufficient for deep learning. 3. Commit to action and practice as the only path to real understanding. 4. Apply this framework to wisdom and character development, not just technical skills. Confucius himself embodied this progression. He did not simply teach ethical principles, he spent a lifetime actively attempting to apply them in political service, family relationships, and community leadership. His students were expected to do the same. The Analects record him repeatedly redirecting students away from theoretical questions toward practical virtue. Not what is goodness, but how does one act with goodness today?
Quote 7.3. Simplicity is the glory of expression. Walt Whitman, 1819 to 1892. Quote definition. The highest achievement in communication is not complexity or ornamentation. It is the clarity and power that comes from stripping away everything unnecessary. Quote application. Messages about wisdom, kindness, and replacing hate reach the most people when expressed in their simplest, most direct form. Complexity is often a barrier to connection. Simplicity is the bridge. Walter Whitman grew up on Long Island and in Brooklyn, the son of a carpenter, and left school at 11 to work as an office boy and typesetter. His education was almost entirely self-directed. He read voraciously, worked as a journalist, and spent years wandering, observing, and absorbing the full range of American life before he produced Leaves of Grass in 1855, one of the most original and revolutionary collections of poetry ever published in English. He invented a free verse style that rejected formal meter and rhyme entirely in favor of long, rolling, speech-like lines that felt, for the first time, unmistakably American. It is profoundly significant that the man who invented a new, stripped-down form of American expression was the one who articulated simplicity as glory. Whitman had fought his way through the ornate, formal, imported literary traditions of his day and emerged on the other side with a style that could speak to a farmer and a president in the same voice. He understood that complexity often hides insecurity or pretension, while genuine simplicity requires the deeper mastery of knowing exactly what matters and what doesn't. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Resist the temptation to use complexity as a proxy for intelligence or authority. 2. Invest in clarity as the more difficult and more valuable skill than elaboration. 3. Understand that the most powerful messages in history have been simple ones. 4. Strip communication down to its essential truth as an act of respect for the audience. Whitman volunteered as a nurse during the Civil War, visiting hospitals and writing letters home for wounded soldiers who couldn't write themselves. The letters he wrote were simple, warm, and direct, exactly what those men and their families needed. He knew instinctively that in moments of real human need, gloriously simple expression is the only expression that matters.
Quote 7.4. And though hard be the task, keep a stiff upper lip. Phoebe Cary, 1822 to 1871. Quote definition. Even when a task is genuinely difficult, composure, resilience, and quiet determination are the qualities that carry you through. Not complaint, not collapse, not retreat. Quote application. The work of replacing hate with wisdom is genuinely hard. It requires enduring discouragement, criticism, and slow progress. Cary's counsel, maintain composure under real difficulty, is essential for anyone committed to long-term positive change. Phoebe Cary was an American poet who, together with her sister Alice, ran one of the most remarkable literary salons in mid-19th century New York. Born on a farm near Cincinnati, Ohio, to a family that could not afford to give her much formal education, Phoebe taught herself through reading and began writing and publishing poetry as a teenager. She and Alice moved to New York City in 1850 with almost no money, built a literary career from scratch through sheer persistence and talent, and eventually attracted the leading writers, reformers, and thinkers of their era to their Sunday evening gatherings. Though keep a stiff upper lip is now a well-worn phrase, Cary's use of it was among the earliest in American literature, and she gave it poetic weight by embedding it in the context of genuine hardship. And though hard be the task, she was not offering cheerful optimism about difficulties that don't really matter. She had lived genuine difficulty, poverty, physical illness, the deaths of siblings, a society that did not easily grant women literary authority. Her instruction to keep composure came from someone who had actually needed it. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Acknowledge that tasks are hard without using that fact as a reason to stop. 2. Cultivate composure as a practiced discipline, not an innate personality trait. 3. Resist the temptation to publicize suffering in ways that erode your own resolve. 4. Trust that quiet endurance consistently outperforms dramatic struggle. Phoebe Cary spent the last months of her life nursing her sister Alice through a fatal illness while battling her own declining health. She kept writing. She kept organizing. She maintained her characteristic warmth and humor to those around her. She modeled in her own life exactly what she had prescribed in her most famous line.
Quote 7.5. Faith in oneself is the best and safest course. Michelangelo 1475 to 1564. Quote definition. Self-belief, genuine trust in one's own capacity, judgment, and creative power, is not arrogance but the most reliable foundation for meaningful achievement. Quote application. Those working to replace hate must believe in their own capacity to make a difference. External validation, institutional approval, and popular support may all be absent. Self-faith is the irreplaceable internal resource that sustains the work when nothing external does. Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni was born in Tuscany and showed such overwhelming artistic ability as a child that his father, who considered art beneath the family's social station, eventually relented and allowed him to apprentice with the painter Ghirlandaio at age 13. Within a year, Michelangelo had exceeded his teacher. By his early 20s, he had carved the Pietà. By his late 20s, he had painted the Sistine Chapel ceiling. He lived to 98, working until nearly the end. What makes Michelangelo's counsel on self-faith especially powerful is the context in which he exercised it. Pope Julius II commissioned the Sistine Chapel ceiling in 1508. Michelangelo was a sculptor, not a fresco painter, and told the Pope so explicitly. Julius insisted. Michelangelo had to invent techniques, rebuild scaffolding, fire assistance he found inadequate, and work for 4 years in contorted positions on his back while critics, rivals, and even the Pope himself expressed impatience and doubt. He trusted his own vision when almost no external evidence supported it. The result was one of the greatest artistic achievements in human history. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Distinguish between arrogance, which ignores reality, and genuine self-faith, which engages it. 2. Rely on internal conviction when external support is absent or hostile. 3. Recognize that self-doubt, left unchecked, is more dangerous than the challenges you face. 4. Treat self-faith as a learnable, sustainable practice rather than a fixed personality trait. Michelangelo didn't arrive at self-faith easily. He was famously tormented, self-critical, and prone to anxiety. But he learned to trust his vision over the objections of patrons, critics, and his own perfectionism. That hard-won faith was what allowed him to complete not just the Sistine Chapel but the dome of St. Peter's Basilica in his late 70s and 80s, long after anyone expected him to continue working.
Quote 7.6. 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Buddha 567 to 484 BC. Quote definition. Truth is not dependent on human acknowledgement or suppression. Like celestial bodies, it operates on its own schedule and will inevitably emerge regardless of the efforts made to conceal it. Quote application. Those working to replace hate can take deep comfort in this. The truth about human dignity, shared humanity, and the destructiveness of hatred cannot be permanently suppressed. The work of spreading wisdom is aligned with an unstoppable natural force. Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, was born into a royal family in what is now southern Nepal around 567 BC. His father, wanting to protect him from suffering, raised him in extraordinary luxury, and shielded him from any exposure to pain, illness, or death. At around age 29, Siddhartha left the palace walls for the first time and encountered an old man, a sick man, a corpse, and an ascetic monk. The experience changed everything. He renounced his royal inheritance, spent 6 years in intense spiritual practice, and under a Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya achieved the enlightenment that made him the Buddha, the awakened one. The Buddha's teaching rested on a bedrock confidence in the knowability of reality. His entire system, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, was premised on the idea that reality, clearly seen, reveals its own nature and its own remedies. The comparison to celestial bodies is precisely chosen. The sun and moon cannot be hidden for long because they are too large, too consistent, and too fundamental to existence to be masked by temporary clouds. Truth shares those qualities. Suppression, denial, and deception may delay its emergence, but the delay is always temporary. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Align personal effort with truth, because truth's emergence is eventual and inevitable. 2. Resist despair when truth appears suppressed. Suppression is temporary, emergence is certain. 3. Exercise patient confidence rather than urgent anxiety in the work of promoting wisdom. 4. Understand that living truthfully is not just morally superior, but strategically sound. The Buddha's own truth was hidden for decades after his death, suppressed by political and cultural forces, scattered across competing oral traditions. But it reemerged, spread across Asia, endured 2,500 years of political upheaval, persecution, and transformation, and today shapes the lives of hundreds of millions of people. The sun, the moon, and the truth.
Quote 7.7. Good, better, or best. Never let it rest till your good is better and your better is best. St. Jerome, 347 to 420 AD. Quote definition. Excellence is not a destination but a permanently active process. The moment you stop pushing your current standard higher is the moment improvement stops. Quote application. In the mission to make America wiser and kinder, good enough is never sufficient. Every effort, every piece of content, every interaction, every act of kindness can be improved. St. Jerome's standard is the permanent operating philosophy for anyone serious about lasting impact. Eusebius, Sophronius Hieronymus, St. Jerome, was one of the most formidable scholars of the ancient world. Born in what is now Croatia around 347 AD, he received an elite classical education in Rome, was baptized as a Christian, and spent years as an ascetic in the Syrian desert where he taught himself Hebrew by having a Jewish scholar instruct him, an almost unheard-of commitment for a Christian scholar of his era. His most consequential achievement was the Vulgate, the definitive Latin translation of the Bible from its original Hebrew and Greek sources, which remain the authoritative biblical text of Western Christianity for over 1,000 years. Jerome's scholarly perfectionism was legendary and sometimes caustic. He was not a gentle critic of sloppy work, his own or anyone else's. But his drive for continuous improvement came from a genuine conviction that sacred texts deserve the best possible human effort, indefinitely applied. The rhyming, memorable formulation of his principles suggests he wanted it to be carried in the mind as a permanent standard, easy enough for a child to repeat, demanding enough to govern a scholar's lifetime. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Reject the temptation to plateau at good, or even better, as a final resting place. 2. Treat the current standard as the floor for the next effort, not the ceiling. 3. Apply the pursuit of continuous improvement across every domain of life without exception. 4. Build the habit of self-evaluation and self-elevation as a daily practice, not an annual review. Jerome spent the last 34 years of his life in a monastery in Bethlehem, revising, refining, translating, and corresponding with scholars across the Christian world. He was never finished. He kept improving. The Vulgate itself went through multiple revisions across his lifetime. Good, better, best was not a motivational poster for Jerome. It was the operating principle of every working day.
Quote 7.8. Fortune favors the prepared mind. Louis Pasteur, 1822 to 1895. Quote definition. What appears to be luck or fortunate accident in the lives of successful people is almost always the product of systematic preparation that positioned them to recognize and act on opportunities others missed. Quote application. The opportunities to replace hate with wisdom and kindness appear constantly, but only the prepared mind recognizes them as opportunities. Educating oneself, practicing wisdom, and building character are the preparation that makes fortunate moments of positive impact possible. Louis Pasteur was the son of a tanner in Dole, France, who showed such academic ability that teachers encouraged his family to support his education. He became a chemist and microbiologist whose work fundamentally transformed medicine, agriculture, and the understanding of disease. His discoveries include the germ theory of disease, the development of vaccines for chicken cholera, anthrax, and rabies, and the process of pasteurization that bears his name, which has saved hundreds of millions of lives by preventing bacterial contamination of food and drink. Pasteur made this observation in the context of scientific discovery, but it was drawn from hard personal experience. His breakthrough discovery of molecular chirality, the asymmetry of crystals, came because he was the one person in his laboratory prepared enough to notice what he was looking at. His discovery of the germ theory of fermentation came because years of painstaking systematic observation had prepared him to interpret what his competitors dismissed or overlooked. The famous story of the accidental discovery of the rabies vaccine is often told as a stroke of luck, but Pasteur's preparation was so thorough that when the accident presented itself, he was the only person in the world positioned to understand its significance and act on it. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Redefine luck as the intersection of preparation and opportunity, which means luck is partially within your control. 2. Invest systematically in the knowledge, skills, and character that make you ready to act when moments arise. 3. Understand that opportunities are present for everyone, but only visible to those who have prepared to see them. 4. Treat setbacks and learning periods as investments in future fortunate outcomes. Pasteur suffered a serious stroke in 1868 at age 45 that partially paralyzed him. He refused to stop working. He continued his research, prepared, as always, to make use of whatever time and capacity remained available to him. His post-stroke decades produced some of his most important discoveries. Fortune continued to favor him because he continued to prepare.
How they work together as a unified philosophy. The Prepared Excellence Framework. Foundation Layer. Preparation and Progressive Learning. Quotes 1-2. Franklin. Establish preparation as a non-negotiable prerequisite for every undertaking. Confucius. Build genuine understanding through the escalating progression of hearing, seeing, doing. Together, create the complete learning system. Franklin ensures you show up ready. Confucius ensures the preparation itself deepens into real understanding. One without the other is incomplete. Preparation without engaged action is static, and action without preparation is reckless. Expression layer. Clarity and resilience. Quotes 3-4. Whitman. Communicate your prepared understanding in its simplest, most powerful form. Cary. Maintain composure and forward motion when the task proves genuinely difficult. Together, navigate the hard middle ground of the prepared person's journey. Whitman ensures that what you've learned reaches others without being lost in complexity, while Cary ensures you don't abandon the effort when difficulty arrives. Simplicity of expression and resilience of spirit are the twin qualities that sustain impact over time. Power layer. Self-faith and inevitable truth. Quotes 5-6. Michelangelo. Ground all action in faith in yourself when external validation is absent. Buddha. Trust that truth, your truth, the truth you're advancing, will emerge regardless of current suppression. Together, provide the internal and cosmic confidence that sustains long-term work. Michelangelo's self-faith addresses the inner dimension, the prepared person's relationship with their own convictions. Buddha's truth emergence addresses the outer dimension, the prepared person's relationship with ultimate outcomes. Together they eliminate both self-doubt and world doubt as reasons to stop. Excellence layer. Continuous improvement and fortunate positioning. Quote 7-8. Saint Jerome. Apply an endless upward standard. Never allow current achievement to become a permanent plateau. Pasteur. Understand that preparation is the mechanism by which fortune is reliably attracted. Together, close the loop and make the framework self-perpetuating. Jerome ensures the prepared person never stops improving, while Pasteur reveals the ultimate payoff. The progressively prepared mind doesn't just avoid failure. It consistently attracts the opportunities that appear to others as luck. Preparation becomes the engine of fortune itself.
Free Easy Extra Advantage Math, Spelling and Reading Workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free Easy Math Wisdom Workbooks with octo repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free Easy Alpha Cipher-coded puzzles teach letters, numbers, and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this cipher quote of encouragement using either our Learning to Spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms that have passed the test of time to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling, and reading practice. And, if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms. Like pretty witty baby onesies and baby tees that you and others will see and read multiple times a day. The same is true with pretty witty kids, but they'll also share these wisdoms with anyone that can read at daycare or school. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. I think tees I wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom that have passed the test of time. Our social equalities help make us all wiser and kinder with blatantly subliminal messages promoting a more fair and equal opportunity society for all. And don't forget our giftwisdoms.com for birthdays and holidays that makes it easy to share the wisdom with clothing, coffee mugs, and magnets. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating, and entertaining with words of wisdom that have passed the test of time to make us all wiser and kinder. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids, and adults. You can clothe a whole family, city, or state. Join the 52 of 8 today.